Hey guys, it's Mathel here once again, and today's video I wanted to show off just a bit more of the Debeon's Dirge action, which is the fully cold raider, cyclone and charge dash two-hand sort of playstyle character. Now for this one, as I mentioned, I have been trying to make charge dash a thing and play with it mostly because it's the newest skill and it's, for me it's been pretty damn fun. Is it the best option for the build? Maybe not. Cyclone, quite possibly better. As you can see here, when you combo Cyclone with the Gore Herald of Ice, all of the freezing, the fast movement speed, it should probably be the smoothest version of the build. It just looks completely insane. It's got decent survivability when you have your Valpact with a lot of leech, evasion, good movement speed, and eventually you can build up to more life as well. And overall, yeah, Cyclone's probably the best option. But in a lot of cases, Charge Dash does hold its own and even comes out a bit on top, a bit superior to Cyclone. There aren't too many situations like that, but they do exist. In any case, I basically tried to make Charge Dash a permanent fixture in this character rather than Cyclone. If you want to play Cyclone with this build, by all means, it should be very comparable to a Namahu's in the end, but I definitely tried to make Charge Dash a thing, and likewise I've also got some Flicker Strike example for you if you want to do that instead. But once again, Charge Dash, just another one of those skills where I don't think it's fair to judge without actually trying and playing it yourself, because a lot of people have been telling me it doesn't look that fun, doesn't look very strong, looks clunky as well. For me personally, it has not really been any of that. It has been a lot of fun. It hasn't felt too clunky almost ever until I took it to the absolute endgame, which you'll see later in this video, and that's mostly because my damage wasn't very good for the absolute endgame. A 6-link is really important when you're going into tier 16, Uber Atziri and Shaper, and I'm still on a 5-link. So the difference between a 5-link and a 6-link in DPS for me is going to be about 50% of my damage, because my planned 6th link is increased area, mostly for clear speed, and then conk effect for bosses, which isn't really any worse for the character at all. It just gives you a lot more damage for the bosses, and it's very important. So this here is an example of a Flicker Strike, which probably is going to be the fastest version of the build, but you know, Flicker Strike has its own problems, as you can tell. For the Flicker Strike version, we just take out Herald of Ash, so you have more mana unreserved, and then run Flicker Strike, added cold, elemental damage with attacks, melee splash, and multi-strike as your 5-link. Your 6th link, I'm not too sure, probably still Ice Bite at that point, and the damage should be there, and you should be able to clear everything, probably up to tier 15 fairly comfortably with Flicker Strike, if Flicker Strike is the kind of character you want to play. It ends up being somewhat similar to Charge Dash, it's just that Charge Dash is a bit more of a controlled Flicker Strike, where you get to pick where you go, what you do, and what you attack, whereas Flicker Strike just has a mind of its own, as you can see right here, and takes you on a few journeys every now and again. I don't personally mind it too much, but it is kind of hard to play for stream because a lot of people complain they get headaches and they can't watch it, and it just ends up being one big whinge fest that I'm playing Flicker Strike, so I tend not to do it on stream too much. And I also personally do want a lot more control in my characters, you know, being able to choose what I do when I do it, which is more of a Charge Dash sort of playstyle. So that's just an example of Flicker if you want to do it, and from here on out I'll be giving you examples of Charge Dash in the later maps. So we're talking like tier 11 plus maps, so ones that have buffed boss health, and I've been doing Charge Dash for just about every single one of these, just because it's good enough on single target, and I've been trying to make it a thing, sort of. I think Cyclone in a lot of these cases will be stronger DPS, but Charge Dash just kind of holds its own, and I've been enjoying the playstyle, I should say. Absolutely all of these bosses, I would say, have been very viable and comfortable on Charge Dash or Cyclone on a 5-link. Overall, the build's budget and character in total costs probably something still like 1 Exalt. The Debeon's Dirge itself is still an absolute budget weapon. You can buy them for about a chaos or so. They might not be the best rolls ever, but they will still do everything a regular Debeon's does, and the rest of my gear is kind of just crap. It should take no more than like 5 to 10 C per piece, something like that. So we're talking kind of a joke for a budget. The only real big difference is we need the 6th link to then progress to tier 16, Uber, Atziri, and Shaper. I think you definitely can still kill all of those bosses on a 5 link, it is just way harder, and I will give you examples of that pretty shortly. But for now, you can definitely see when I do some of these bosses just how much better the single target is compared to the previous build, which was Stormburst. Now, I'm still not sure if it's just something I fucked up, or if Stormburst itself just totally sucks for single target, which was ultimately a surprise. But this is only on a 5 link, and it's taking care of all of those previous bosses that Stormburst struggled on so much better, whereas Stormburst was a 6 link. And yeah, if I get a 6 link on this one, all of these bosses end up being a complete joke, even though they're not too hard right now. The biggest issue is I currently only have about 5,000 life, and I could only really fix that by getting a 6 link or a Belly of the Beast. And ultimately, I think if I got a 6th link or a Belly of the Beast, I'd have about 6k life. With the Belly of the Beast, or with the 6th link, I'd probably then respec a bit of my damage to respec into a bit of life, because at that point I definitely could afford to drop some damage. Now, this is where the Guardians start for the video, and I did one round of every single Guardian. So I bought the Guardian maps because I still haven't really gotten up to them, and I corrupted each one so I could get the completion, which did make for some pretty nuts maps. This is a Chimera with additional damage, and he's super speeded for movement and attack speed, and you can see he attacks insanely fast. His damage is really bad. Or really good, I should say, and that means we basically never have a chance to stand still or recover. But the damage is still okay against Chimera, and then the ad's Charge Strike is actually really good against them. You can see the ad clearing phases here. Just about any one of these ads could damn near one-shot me if they actually hit me, but the way in which it works with its sort of ranged ability and then the freeze coming in from Frostbite and, you know, being fully cold ends up being really smooth for this sort of boss fight. If you had a much easier map roll and hell, like I said, a 6th link, this would be a pretty damn cakewalk for this type of skill and build to complete. So Chimera was definitely the best example for Charge Dash, probably even better than a Cyclone would be. However, the Hydra over here, once again, I definitely need a 6th link worth of DPS, and Charge Dash is kind of a cluster on this one. You rarely, if ever, get to sort of do all of your damage because there's so much shit going on, and the way that Charge Dash works, you can't really control where you're going all the time, and you oftentimes want to try and avoid hitting a ball or her attack, and that means you can't really charge like you'd want to. So the DPS isn't completely optimal here or ideal, but when you do get it in, it's not too bad, and you can certainly kill her. Once again, a corrupted map with an easier roll, it could potentially be easier, but here's another one with Minotaur. It's fairly comfortable, fairly easy. I don't remember what was on this map for corruption. I think it was hexproof, which is a big deal for my Frostbite, and it still isn't too bad damage, can more or less face tank everything he does and just leech up instantly. But once again, like I said, the 5k life and the fact that I don't have that 6th link makes it kind of tough, because ultimately I do get one shot here to one of the rocks, I think, or maybe I was comboed by 2 different attacks, and 5k life just doesn't really cut it at that point, at least not when you're trying to reliably farm Guardians. So on the complete budget version of this build with a 5 link, you can clear the Guardians, but it's not something you want to be doing regularly, and not something you're going to be doing very smoothly, because you will be dying, you will be having a tough time against certain map mods. You need the much more damage coming from the 6 link and the potential respec into a bit more life, or the Belly of the Beast, to then reliably do this. For what it is though, it does pretty well, and this is another bad example of a map because it's got Turbo Phoenix and some other nonsense on there, so he's a lot faster, hits a lot harder, and it makes it quite a bit tougher for survivability. But Charge Dash overall is a pretty good skill for Phoenix, as you can see. You do dash around a lot, avoiding the Phoenix damage, avoiding the Phoenix's damage, and kind of clearing them when they least expect it. I think it's probably better than Cyclone, whereas I think Cyclone's better for both Minotaur and Hydra. So you got kind of a 50-50 split there. Charge Dash may be better for one, and Cyclone better for the other half. And then Shaper. For Shaper, I kind of messed up a few times here or there and wasted a few portals on deaths that shouldn't have happened, and ultimately I didn't kill him. Now I'm not going to show you the full run. I ended up getting him to about 5% life, and I could have culled him if I got a culling strike, but I chose to just try and balls it out and go full man mode on him. So I used 6 portals unwisely at times and got him to about 5% life. Definitely killable with a 5 link, but the 6 link makes it so much easier because it means you have to deal with less of the bullshit during those phases. And this was fairly unimpressive DPS over here in the first Atziri run I tried, because it took a while to kill these Vals. Even with a 6 link, I'm not sure it would be a very fast kill at all. It ends up being somewhat reliable and safe because they can't kill you that easily, but it was actually probably one of the slowest Val kills I've had in quite a while, and I can't tell if that's because buffed boss life or just fucking damage not that great for this type of fight. I think Cyclone definitely would have done a lot better for this one, and obviously a 6th link. Now the damage on the trio actually felt pretty good for this Uber run. Just dash around on the ranged wench a few times and she actually dies pretty quickly, and then you can avoid the damage from the other 2 guys fairly reliably, and the trio run is fairly smooth even on a 5 link. As long as you know what you're doing, it can be tough otherwise, but that one I was fairly impressed with. And then ultimately we had Atziri. Now I'm going to sound like a broken record, but I needed a 6th link for this one. The 6th link damage would have just made it smooth enough to actually be clearable. You can see there I almost killed the split phase ad before they did anything, but if I had 50% more damage with the 6th link, it would have actually worked out just fine. With the 5 link damage, it's just a bit too hectic and hard to get through, though definitely doable, I think. It's just not very reliable, and it was a very tough time for my character trying to finish this off. So ultimately, I think I got it to about 15% with all of my portals and didn't manage to clear it. And ultimately, I think Cyclone's going to do this a lot better. Charge Dash got me killed a few times on this fight when I couldn't properly control it and get out of the Flame Blast that she was casting, but yeah, it was fun. It was an experience. I really tried to challenge myself by only using Charge Dash with this weapon, which is still more or less, I'd say, a completely budget build. And ultimately, I think it was a fun build, worth playing if you're looking for something fast-paced, intense, and a lot of freeze and very pretty to play with, especially with Gore Herald of Ice. Like I said, if you want to take it to the end game, you're going to need to go for those 6 links. You'll probably want to get a Belly of the Beast as well. For everything else, it's been really good. It was a really fun build. I'm probably going to play maybe another day of it, try and wrap up a few more endgame bosses and maps. But at this point, I've hit level 90. It's been very fun. I've tried Charge Dash out, which was the goal, and I think it's worth playing, but entirely up to you as to what skill you fit into this build. So if you want to check out the guide for it, check out the previous video. Not much has changed since then. I will update the gear in the little build list. Otherwise, guys, hope you enjoyed the video, the build. Thank you very much for watching, and see you next time.